Hockey fans, welcome to NYI FYI with Sean Croft and Chris Hessel.
Welcome to NYI FYI Big Game Sunday. You know you're not allowed to call it by its proper name?
Really?
Yep, it's copywritten.
Wow.
So you can't call it
What it is.
Yeah. We can call it a Supper Bowl.
Okay.
But we can't call it
I did not know that.
That's why every time you see an advertisement for it, it's something like within 2 weeks leading up to the game.
It just was the big game.
It's always the big game.
I had no idea. We've been
Yes.
saying it on the show the last few years. I mean,
I don't think they're
time we
coming
did a
after
show.
us, but
no. Okay, so the big game.
we'll make big game. Well, actually, let's just do it now. What's your big game prediction?
Prediction. It's a tough call because I'm actually rooting for the Seahawks today. I am rooting for the Seahawks. I'd like to say the Seahawks are going to win, but I don't know. Peyton Manning. I don't know if it's going to be tough to get past Peyton Manning.
The problem is, as good as they are, there's one Richard Sherman. There's 3 number 1 receivers on Denver.
That's the thing. And Manning can find every one of them, no matter where they are. So that's going to be the tough task for those. Yeah, it's going to be a good game. You know, it's one of those because you've seen teams in the past where it's like, oh great, this is a terrible matchup. Why do we want to watch this? Who wants to see this? But I think Seahawks Broncos is pretty much what everybody was hoping for, and it goes to show you too how different things are. Once you play actual games where before the season started, the Houston Texans and the Atlanta Falcons were named as teams that were favorites to go to the big game.
Whoops.
and here we are, and it's Broncos Seahawks. So I'm a big Russell Wilson guy, and I'm hoping that on the national stage there, that in the big game, that he does some good things. But we'll see what happens. I'm thinking though that the Broncos are going to end up winning. It's going to be a close game. I think it is going to end up being a close game.
I just hope my numbers hit. That's what I'm hoping for.
That's more than enough reason to do that.
But I'm believing that it's going to be Denver.
Yeah, I think
they're just too good at this point.
Denver's definitely the favorite. I mean, I think at this point it's fair to say that. But it's going to be one of those fun games to watch, and certainly, I'm excited about the halftime show. Looks like it'll be exciting. I'm a big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, so I'm looking forward to them doing. I think they're performing Led Zeppelin, which is another band that I love. So I'm really looking forward to that, to see how that goes. So that'll be exciting for me.
How come Skype only updates when we try to open it on the show?
I have no idea.
It never updates unless we're on.
That reminds me, we should share the link with our friends there and such.
Yeah.
I missed this morning because I don't know how to do that. I don't know exactly what link to give them, but get everybody up and running. Skype doesn't update any. Yeah, every time we always run into these problems where now we figured out the video component, which was hindering us from starting on time. We were always starting around this time when we were on the Ustream there, and certainly, I know the audio on YouTube for the first few minutes, but it's definitely nice to at least show on time. Skype cannot to open up in the new broadcaster and then freezing and this and that.
Let's get to the Twitter. I'm on the Twitter now. Oh man.
So who are you rooting for then? Are you rooting for any team?
I don't really care.
Yeah, see,
I'm rooting for my boxes. I would like.
That's what a lot of people.
I mean, who would I? Russell Wilson has another 15 years to win a Super Bowl, and I think that he's somebody that's going to be in the big game. more often than not over the next, I'd say, 3 years to 4 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So he's got more of a chance than Manning does at this point.
Yeah, no, I would think so. I think you're right. Given the age difference, the talent level of Russell Wilson, the Seahawks are going to be a team that people are going to be naturally drawn to. You look at the acquisitions they've made over the last year or so, ever since Russell Wilson. My own Wilson happens to be my favorite NFL player, but so it's kind of a selfish reason of why I'm all Seahawks today. But I'm certainly not going to be upset if the Broncos end up winning the big game, as it were, today.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun at least. Oh. But like you said, rooting for boxes is probably the way to go.
Yep. Okay, enough of the updates. All right, so the Skype is live, so you can call into NYIFYI. NYIFY on Skype. That's the name, NYIFYI. This week
so this was a terrible week.
Let's
move now on to hockey.
Yeah. We were trying to drag that out for as long as possible.
Absolutely, and given the week that we had, I don't blame you. And of course, there's rumors that we'll have to talk about and address. Oh man, what a mess this week was.
Yeah,
this week is a mess.
Let's just blow through this real fast. We stunk against the Bruins. We were terrible.
And you know what the unfortunate thing was? The way that they started this game, everybody was amped up for this game, and then the Bruins are the ones that got, they like the first 15 shots, it was 15-1 halfway through the period, 15-2, something like that. And then you had Capuano game saying, well, I think that the shot, the discrepancy is a little misleading. Well,
you're an idiot.
This Islander team could not control the puck. They could not get the puck towards the net. Now, Chad Johnson's been very good for the Bruins this year, but at the end of the day, he's still their backup goaltender, and at the end of the day, you still have to get shots to the net. And, it took the Islanders to get that first power play where they had, I think it was 5 shots on that one power play, some nice chances, and then their game started to come back, and they were able to start to answer some of these goals that the Bruins were scoring, and they and played that season game. So given the way that it started, I was glad with the fact that they started to play better. And then you had this great chance in the third period. Come out flat as anything. They didn't even show up for the third period.
How about this? Kyle Opozo scores at the 15:08 mark. At the 15:08 mark of the second period to tie the game.
Mm-hmm.
What has killed this team all season?
Here he
Late
comes. Here it comes.
And early goals. We tie the game, and then at the 19:27 mark, Soderberg take the lead, and then at the 2:17 mark of the third period, Bergeron scores to extend the lead.
And that's Soderberg.
This is something that kills this team. They end periods flat, and they come out flat. Well, this is a constant problem.
That Soderberg goal was one of the dumbest things to happen in this game because Thomas Hickey made a very high-risk play in trying to knock down a saucer pass. And when he looked foolish doing so because he completely whiffed, basically tripped over the blue line, and it allowed Soderberg to kind of get around him. And he had a step on Hickey the whole time and was able to on Poulin. So, there were some dumb plays in this game. The defense was absolutely terrible.
0 for 5 on the play.
And that's the other problem. I look at the Soderberg goal, a bad play by Thomas Hickey. I look at the Riley Smith goal, Matt Carkner sleeping in front of Kevin Poulin. Some really bad defensive plays that really took away from this game. And put the Islanders in the hole that they were in. You're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to win games against the Penguins if you're not going to score on the power to that later, because that was pretty much the story of the week, and B, if you're going to have defensive breakdowns like that. You're putting Matt Carkner in, and he hasn't been out of place. He hasn't been terrible. This game was pretty bad for him. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've now seen him back in the lineup since this. He was pretty brutal in this game. Andrew McDonald made another bad turnover that helped lead to the other goal. Some bad plays all around. Now, Poulin gave up a couple of weak goals, but a lot of those were just, the Riley Smith goal, that's Karkner. That's on Karkner. The Soderberg goal, that's on Hickey. So to me, the power play and the defense, from a couple of usual suspects and one who's actually been pretty steady, but just prone to bad plays himself, is one of the things that stands out to me in this game. And then you absolutely don't show up. I mean, for the third period, it's not a good situation. And it's, as you said, it's not a good situation to be a team that is already in a very precarious position where they're trying to make the playoffs, and yet they're still having brain cramps early and late in periods.
It was right before Flyers on the 20th. So that would have been the show that we did on the 19th.
Yes.
And we said that if this team has a prayer of making the playoffs because they're playing so many Eastern Conference opponents and because they're playing a lot of teams in their division, that we had to go 5.
If you look at the other part of it, the line that was on for a lot of these chances here was Matt Martin, Casey Cizikas, Colin McDonald, and the Marchand line really ate them all up. And that was a talking point for me. And played it, but Martin was like, we were on for 3 or 4 goals, and when you look at the 3 of them, they were combined -10. Martin was a -4. This has been one of the Islanders' more consistent lines in recent days, and I don't know where their head was at, but you could see. I mean, Cizikas was in a little bit of a fog and had a couple of bad turnovers. They weren't as good as they had been on the forecheck. And under a normal circumstance, this would be, again, one of those games for a team that is still up and coming. But the problem is that they've dug themselves such a hole that they really can't afford games like this. And here we are talking about another game like this.
Yeah. The other thing that has killed this team is the inability to hold leads, to hold ties. The Achilles heel of this team has been 40-minute efforts, late and early goals, the inability to hold leads, the inability to hold ties. All of these problems came to light at Yankee Stadium. Now, it wasn't the embarrassment that the Devils went through, and Martin Brodeur just needs to shut up. Oh, it was bad ice. No, you sucked.
Both teams
period.
were on the same ice.
You
and
stunk.
Listen, this was bad ice in this game, too. I don't want to say that the Islanders played great because they could have been a lot better. They didn't play terribly, and like you said, they didn't embarrass themselves. But you have to figure out that you can't try your fancy plays on ice that's getting chopped up the way that this ice was.
Correct.
The puck was bouncing all over the puck.
First off, you can't pull those plays off on good ice. So let's put that aside.
And that I'm saying, that they haven't figured that out yet. And listen, when we were going through this game, everybody was saying that 0 for 3 on the power play is going to come back and kill them, because you could tell they were trying to be too cute and too fancy on foreign ice. Basically, it's ice that they're not used to. And you fall asleep a couple of times, and you get burned for it. I'm more annoyed at the Carcillo goal than I really was on the Pouliot goal, because that was, awkward bounce. Vishnowsky was there, Nabokov was there. It took all that Brassard did to just get the puck over to Nabokov's glove. It tipped off of it into Pouliot's chest. I mean, that's kind of one of those unfortunate bounce things. But the Islanders could have scored more than 1 goal in this game, absolutely, because you saw some of the chances that they had. They had some of the better chances. Nabokov did make some phenomenal saves that I don't think Kevin Poulin would have made on this ice. But, when you're struggling in a game like this and you realize that it's going to be one of those battles, you got to help yourself out. You got to realize that you got to get the puck towards the net. You got to realize that it's got to be a dump and chase thing. You got to work, a half-court offense, if you will. You can't try the long stretch passes from your own end. You can't try the little behind the back drop passes, because that puck gets stuck. There's no friction there. That puck is going to get stuck. And there were a couple of moments where the Islanders were figuring out to get the chances from behind the net, but the Rangers were starting to do it with more consistency. And you look at the goals that they've gotten, and it's all from behind the goal line.
The Islanders score their first goal. It was the first goal of the game at the 18:33 mark of the second period. A nice shot from Brock Nelson on a great assist by Cal Clutterbuck. Let me tell you,
that was a great play all around. Considering, I mean, Clutterbuck staying with the play, Donovan with the beautiful touch pass. I mean, it was really a great play all around. That really was all created by Clutterbuck.
Yeah, and then 40 seconds later, at the 1913 mark. So here we go, late again. 40 seconds, you had the lead.
The Islanders
gone,
being a little lazy on the play. You know, the Rangers doing their dump and chase thing and getting the puck behind the net. Wisniewski doesn't know how to handle that. Nabokov is doing, I think, what he should. He's trying to guard the post and hope that it's very hard to get the elevated passes in this game, hoping that it just gets passed into his chest area. So I understood what he was going for there. Wisniewski pretty much continued to push him down, though. And like I said, it's one of those, it went the other way. Nabokov was probably down a little lower than he would have liked to be towards the ice, and it goes off the top of his gloves and into Pouliot's chest. And at that point, you kind of knew how this one was going to end. You could just see that it was going to come. The Rangers were starting to adjust. The Islanders were still trying to be too cute and fancy. And although that they played a good third period and had the better chances, you know, not realizing, getting caught, you know, making a bad turnover, getting caught, and not understanding the nuances of playing on different ice, and you had four guys collapsing towards the net. And, you know, all it took was that one rebound for Nabokov to leave in a pretty vulnerable area. And you pretty much had the idea that this game may be over, especially with the way Lundqvist has been playing lately.
Yeah. And it is what, you know, the same situation. Too many passes. Too many passes.
Too many passes. And
you
that drove me
can't
nuts.
pass on that ice.
And that drove me nuts. I understood on the first power play. I was like, okay, you're kind of getting used to it. You know, you figure both teams. I mean, you look at the way that this game went for the first period. Both teams are kind of trying to figure it out. Both teams were trying to realize that they had to do wider passes. A couple of guys took tumbles behind their own nets and trying to, you know, corral pucks and calm the play down. And you know, you had a situation where the Islanders actually, I thought, did a good job in the first period of like poking pucks away. They realized that, you know, they kind of figured out that the Rangers were going to have a hard time just as they were going to have a hard time, and all they had to do was poke a puck away, or, you know, once it got past the guy, you know, that they had this ability to kind of cover a guy, get on him, hit him off the puck a little bit, and it was easy to strip players of pucks. But the Rangers figured out how to adjust to that. The Rangers figured out how to adjust their breakout. And the thing that bothers me is you look at the interviews that Pierre Maguire does, and I don't like to read too much into this stuff, but, you know, they show videos of Vigneault, and he's standing on the bench, and he's screaming, and he's talking to players about, you know, changing strategy and this and that and the other thing, and, you know, John Tavares is pissed off that the ice is terrible, and there was never any talk of the Islanders adjusting, and you never really saw them adjust their game plan.
No.
You really never saw that come.
But when do they ever adjust their game plan?
Well, I'm just saying that's to me shows you what part of the problem is.
Yeah.
And I think that the Islanders, given their limitations, be it at coaching and otherwise, I thought played a very good outdoor game. It was actually a very entertaining game.
I thought it was a good game to watch.
I thought it was a very entertaining game. It went over a lot better than I thought. Well, CeeLo Green didn't so much.
But bad.
At least, you know, in LA you had Kiss. It's hockey music. People, you know, that kind of music is synonymous with hockey. I don't know where CeeLo Green fits into this. You got the worst half of Gnarls Barkley playing here, and you know, I don't know what happened there. But you know, flipping off the fans, and, you know, obviously he's a Rangers fan of some kind. But you know, I thought that the NHL put on a good event. I thought that the venue was fun, and the ice was fun to have. That you really got that lake feel to it. And nobody complained about how bad the ice was as an excuse.
Brodeur.
Except for Brodeur. That's what I'm saying.
But he always has an excuse. Yeah. Brodeur has always had an excuse for when he's played terribly.
And, well, even that game, when they interviewed Patrick Elias, he said, well, yeah, it was a little this and that. He goes, but yeah, it's the same for both teams. You know, we both played on the same ice. He didn't attribute it to the Rangers already being used to playing an outdoor game against the Flyers a few years back or whatever like that. You know, a lot of those goals that Brodeur gave up in his outdoor game there were pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rangers figured out that the Devils were pinching. I mean, the Devils had no idea, and they didn't adjust either. And you saw a lot of, you know, odd man rushes the other way against the Devils, and that is a key problem. I thought that the Islanders did a good job of preventing that from happening. You know, and that was really going to be the key. That was the thing that made me nervous the most, was I thought that the Islanders were going to be too excited, too energetic playing in this game, that they were going to do some stupid things. And overall, defensively, they didn't do as many stupid things as you would have thought. Given their limitations on defense right now without Harmonic and whatnot. So I thought that they played a very good outdoor game. I'm glad that they had fun with it. It's a shame that they didn't walk out of it with any points.
Yeah.
Because these were really, when I interviewed the players after after the game against Boston, these were the common thing. And I spoke to Martin was, it's big 4 points for us. This is it. This is, we're chasing the Rangers. We need to be able to beat teams like the Rangers. We need all 4 points. There's no excuses. We have to get it done. We have to put this past us. We have to look past all the circus atmosphere, if you will, and we have to get these 4 points. And they got nothing.
Yeah. Then Friday night's game against the Rangers. Oh, here we go again, 3:29 mark. Now, I have said that I want to count how many goals come in the last 3 minutes and the first 3 minutes. So good for the Islanders. They beat my timeline by 29 seconds, but here we go again, falling behind early. Kyle Opozo scores his 24th of the season at the 14:28 mark to close out a good second period. And, another 40-minute game. The Islanders don't show up for the third. They allow 3 goals in the last 7.5 minutes and go 0 for 5 on the power play. The Islanders did not score a power play goal all week.
Yeah,
this is a big
brutal.
problem.
Absolutely brutal. The Islanders had plenty of chances. The Islanders actually played a very good game, like you said. I would say it was even more than a 40-minute game for them because I thought that they played well in the start of the third period, but they let themselves, they let the play get away from them. They let the Rangers take control of the game, and once that happened, they just fell apart. They played very physical. They had the better chance. Both. I mean, it was really a goaltending matchup. It was really, like you say, a pitcher's duel in baseball. It was really a goaltender's duel. Phenomenal saves on both ends. I have no idea how some of these saves even happened. And you knew that it was going to be one of those games where you were going to have to stick with the team, your opponent, all game long, and that's where the Islanders failed. And once the Rangers started to control the play, and once they put that goal in, that was it. I mean, you could tell just from the way that the Islanders were playing that everything was unraveling as we were speaking. They had those power play opportunities that they did absolutely nothing with, and it's really a shame that this is it. This has probably done them in. I said that this was big for them, that they had to get all these points against their division, and they started off really well. Okay, they had gotten, you throw in the points against the Blues, okay, whatever. But you had beaten the Flyers in that other game. You had beaten the Rangers at MSG. You got the point out of the Blues game, and you're starting to look at these situations, and you're going, okay, you're playing a lot of division opponents. Now you got to get those 4 points against the Rangers, especially because of the way that they had lost 3 games in a row now by this point. No, not happening. Absolutely not happening. Absolutely not a good situation. And I hate to say it, but it's pretty grim right now because now you're falling back down.
You're 10 points out.
Yeah, now you're falling back down again against your division.
You're 10 points out. You've got 3 games.
And all these teams are playing each other on a nightly basis. They're all in action.
And you got 3 games coming up this week. And frankly, after the way that this team played, they'll beat Calgary.
Yes,
because they stink.
I think they're
but
going to
we're going to lose to the Capitals.
I think they're going to end up winning those 2 home games. I think they're going to end up beating the Flames and the Avalanche.
No, I think the Avalanche are going to kill us before the Olympics. I think that's going to be the dagger in the heart.
But the Capitals, they're not going to beat the Capitals because the Capitals have their number, especially at the Verizon Center there. No, it's not a good situation right now, and I can see this team losing to another division rival, but winning 2 games against Western Conference teams that don't matter. And this team matches up well with those Western Conference teams for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Maybe they should go to Seattle. But I'm just kidding.
Well, it would give half the people that are so mad that they're going to Brooklyn what they wished for.
So now we had a good question from somebody on Twitter. We're back to talking about, and now there's talk of, the Islanders obviously want to bring Vanek back, and Vanek is open to coming back with the Islanders. But now you're in this position where here we are again. Now we're 10 points out. We're 3 games away from the Olympic break, and then when we come back from the Olympic break, we're only 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. And this team is probably going to be too far out to know for sure. Like last year, it was 5 points out. They stuck with what they had, and they ended up making it. I mean, where do you go? What do you think has to happen here? What happens? You think this team becomes a seller or a buyer?
I think that's actually a really good jumping off point for us for when we get back from the break. Because we do have to take a break, and when we get back, we're definitely going. This, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks that I'm going to tally how many goals come in the first 3 and the last 3 minutes of a period, and I'm doing that right now. So hopefully by the time we get to the next break, I can tell you. But I will say this: what were getting early goals. They were getting late goals. They were creating momentum in these early games when they were playing well. And something happened, and it just happened. They completely fell off the wagon here. We'll talk about that, and we're going to talk about Thomas Vanek and whether the Islanders are buyers or sellers when we get back. You're listening to NYI FYI on NYIFYI.com.
NYI FYI. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Sean, and you've been listening to me talk about cardboard memories in Comac for years. A lot of you have checked it out, and that's awesome. But for those of you who haven't, what are you waiting for? Cardboard Memories has everything you want. Sports memorabilia, movie memorabilia. He's got old press passes, old pins if you're into collecting that kind of thing. If you need something authenticated, Scott is the guy to go to. I guarantee it. Look, I've added a ton of stuff to my collection, and there's nowhere else I'd rather shop than Cardboard Memories in Comac, in the Pepper Tree Commons. They got all the info right now at cardboardmemories.com. You've got to check them out.
Have a question? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Have a comment? The forum at NYI. You might want to look somewhere else. But when it comes to hockey, let your voice be heard. Check out the forum at NYIFYI.com. Chat with hockey fans from all over the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Membership is free, so log on and be heard. The forum at NYIFYI.com.
Jack of All Trades Productions, Long Island's premier full-service post-production company, specializing in wedding videos, corporate videos, music videos, and film. Jack of All Trades Productions is there for all your post-production needs. Jack of All Trades Productions uses Avid Media Composer to bring finesse and style to your project, with experience in color correction, as well as sound editing and design. For more information, log on to JackyZo.com. That's JACKIZO.com. Again, that's JACKIZO.com. Jack of All Trades Productions.
11:30. It's so infuriating why people don't show up when they're in a playoff race, when they have 8,000, 9,000 people showing up when the team's playing well. Because people believe that everything that this team does is a flash in the pan. And it's reasons like this. They get off to great starts, and they just have the inability to close out. And they find themselves in trouble situations. They can't score on the power play. They pass too much.
And then that all snowballs into making bad line changes. We see it. Tavares the other night made a really bad line change. And it's like everything is snowballing. And say it about Doug Waite with saying this again, but I was a big. I think that this team needed a guy who's been in a finals, a conference finals, and a Stanley Cup finals in this decade. They have nobody who's even sniffed any of that on this roster. And, guys like that. Listen, the Devils aren't the greatest team this year. I think they've surprised a lot of people. I think Yager surprised a lot of people that he's really carrying that team. And Islanders missed the boat on. You could have thrown a couple of extra million at signing a guy like that instead of Pierre-Marc Bouchard. I mean, I don't understand why this team doesn't go out and get the veteran support that these guys need. Because, when things are going rough, it's those on-ice veterans that know how to rally the troops. It's those on-ice veterans that know what are the right plays to make. And, you're getting an awful lot of guys that are kind of going through the trenches together right now. And really, for me, that's one of my biggest issues with the way that this club is structured right now. And I think that bleeds through more often than not.
It's been a problem for a long time. And with every game that this team won, they saved him, and they saved him, and they saved him, and they saved him. And we have saved him for too long. And I understand that the team was playing better, but there was no reason why at the beginning of December that this guy was still coaching this team. None at all, because this guy is what is going to cost them the postseason. The bad decisions, the bad line changes, the bad line combinations, a lack of fire, the inability to ditch a system that doesn't work. Forget ditching it. He will not admit that the system is a problem. In fact, he has said the system is not a problem.
I mean, too, from the dump and chase game, which kind of scares me. I like the fact it was starting to take a step away from it. This team is a successful team when any team is successful when they have control of the puck. That's the team controlled that puck for the whole power play, okay, and scored right after the power play ended. But they were physical. Pale team, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a hard-nosed team with a bunch of guys that thrive when the physical play is amped up, and when they are meeting or exceeding the level of their opponent. When they allow their opponent, just like the Bruins kind of push them around, they get into this mode where they can't keep up, and they're losing these games because of that. And it always takes a guy to get you back to that game. And I know that, there's only so much that a coach can say at the same time. As much as we say, well, this, that, and the other thing, there's only so much that a coach can say. The speech that Capuano gave about getting the pucks in deep and this and that before the other game, that was good. Don't activate
the
too
Yankee
much
Stadium
and stuff. Yes, and then you hear him call on Doug to give his speech, and I'm sure that these guys are reminding them, all right, we got to play our system,
And he even said,
you get the puck in deep, he's controlling it on the boards, he's tough to knock off the puck, and it reminds the players then and there in the moment, okay, this is why we thrive on this is what we got to keep doing, and there's a guy standing there right next to them who can remind them of this all the time, not a guy standing 50 feet away on a bench that's trying to scream at them in the heat of play while these guys are trying to figure out where to stand, because quite often we're seeing guys scramble and not able to, and are losing their covers. So I think that there's a number of problems going on here, and it's all culminated into where we are now, which is talking about
yeah. you asked the
I think it would be too.
I think that
Because I think with a guy like that, you want to wait, and you're going to maximize your return from a team that's really trying to make some noise closer to the deadline.
there's that, and I also think that there is a chance that you could get this guy re-upped because
Yes, that's the
all
other thing.
signs enjoying his play here, enjoying the organization, enjoying playing with John Tavares. I think that to just give up on this guy and ditch him, he's not going to save us the season, but he will be the the winger that you need for John Tavares, and that's why you went out, and that's why you got him.
Yeah,
so I think that not giving yourselves as much time as possible to get this guy re-upped would be a disaster.
And that's the attitude that I have. And even Butch said it the other night. He goes, but you run the risk. Are you really going to break up what's been one of the top lines in hockey? These guys are playing well together. Vanek really likes playing well with Tavares and Oposo. Of course, there's the issue if does his family like it. And, you read the comments from Vanek, and he's like, yeah, we're figuring it out, and this and that and the other thing. I mean,
but he's
I
not
don't
going
think
to tip his hand
no,
one way or the
absolutely
other.
not, and he wouldn't be a good negotiator if he did that. He has to understand what's the best for him to get the most money that he can get of negotiation. So he's not going to tip his hand, and to that is that they hold on to him, and if anything, they trade him in the summer before free agency. I think that they're going to really try, just like they did with Mark Streit. I think they're really going to try and get this guy signed. My problem is I don't think that they're going to offer him a market value contract, and after all the months of trying to do so, will finally cave, before the free agency period starts, and they'll end up trading his rights somewhere. I'm not even convinced though that Vanek doesn't at least test the market. I mean, if you look at this from Thomas Vanek's point, and this is kind of what we talked about, what drives me nuts when people say, come back Thomas Vanek, we love you, come back Thomas Vanek. You can sit there and say that and blame the guy and this and that and the other thing and say that, oh, he didn't like it here because he didn't re-sign, he didn't take the Islanders deal and this and that, or, I saw, like I said, some certain people had comments about it was the ball was in Vanek's court. Absolutely not. Thomas Vanek, looking at this from his standpoint, and just from a strict business, I'm a business guy, so of course I have to get this part in there, but looking at it from a strict business standpoint, when it comes to negotiation, he would be pretty stupid to not test the market.
Absolutely.
Because look at everybody who won.
Unless the Islanders come up and offer him a max contract. If the Islanders offer him a max contract front-loaded,
then he's not going to get anything better, right?
He's not going to get anything better.
Then it would just be a matter of preference with team.
Right.
But he is going to be the #1 target. He is going to get about 15 offers 5 minutes into free agency. He's going to have his pick of wherever he wants to go. And all the teams that didn't spend money on the Phil Kessels, the Dion Phaneufs, the Jason Pominvilles, will now have will now have all the money that they want for this guy. So, if I'm his agent, trade him at the deadline just because he's not signing anything right now.
No. I think I think you'd be jumping the gun. And I think Garth Snow, for some reason or the next, still feels burned because he couldn't re-sign Ryan Smith. We got rid of 2 prospects that became nothing. A draft pick that, we've said it before, and I'll say it again.
Where is he?
A draft
Where
pick.
is
Ryan Smith is a bum. And he was a bum after he signed that contract. So, you know what? And it was no harm, no foul on either side, I should say. Really, I mean, that's.
For me, part of Coop's question from earlier on Twitter. A prospect. I understand a lot of people talk about draft picks and this and that. I need a prospect coming back with that. I do need a guy that I can throw in a prospect that maybe is in the AHL right now or close to being pro next year that I can throw in. A defenseman would be a nice get. Absolutely. I mean, I know we have the Griffin Reinhardts and the Scott Mayfield is still a year away or so. Han looks like he's developing into something. I know we have all these guys, but this team needs needs that guy that's closer to ready now, rather than later. Griffin Reinhardt may be up here next year, but he may not be effective until near the end of his first year. You look at it's like I say with Travis Harmonic. Okay, he was pretty good, got more and more minutes, started to do some good things, but didn't really hit his stride, if you will, until the end of the year.
Right.
But the Islanders felt comfortable enough with Travis Harmonic putting him in the lineup that they traded James Wisniewski in November, whatever it was, for what ended up being a pretty good return, a second and a fifth. But for me, I definitely would look at something like that. The thing that scares me is if Vanek leaves is the lack of impact forwards that you can throw in on that line. I mean, you have Strome, but it looks like that they've really pegged him to become a center again. So it'd kind of be nice to get that winger, that we're gonna be if you're trading Vanek at the deadline. That deal is going to be available, though.
Frankly,
I don't
tell
see
you,
teams that are going to be willing to give up.
Let's get into a couple of things here in the chat room, and I'll
Okay.
tell you the players that I certainly would be interested in trading. And by the way, I'm not even finished with December in regards to how many goals we let up within the first 3 and last 3 minutes of a period. It's mind blowing. It
Is it
truly
really?
is
Yeah.
mind blowing, and I think that I had counted maybe 5. It's astronomical. It's almost I would be embarrassed.
It's like you don't think that this team can win a game until they're down. It seems like they thrive on that, but I don't understand, what that mentality is.
Here in the chat room, okay, Pablo, Cappy cost us the postseason, but saves Wong much more. Not bashing Wong, just calling it the way it is. Yeah, we've said that on here a bunch of times.
That's a good point.
Can't believe they traded for him, not ready to offer him a market value contract.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is it came out through TSN that the Islanders said that not only do they believe that they can re-sign him, but they said they can outbid any other team
Yes.
for him, and they said that they are that outbidding him is not only in regards to the numbers, but also offering him
The
a
8 years.
market contract.
Yeah. Well, and that's why when
Which is
for me,
refreshing to hear
for
that they're
me,
willing to do that.
the best news was when Art Staples said that they seem to be really close to what they seem to be doing was working off the 7-year, $50 million contract that he's coming off with. That was the best news that I heard in regards to Thomas Vanek, because I didn't think that the Islanders were going to be working off that 7-year, $50 million number. And let's be honest, and I didn't get to say this last week, but people say, is he really worth between the $7 and $8 million? And Staples said that was kind of what Snow was trying to figure out. On the open market, he's absolutely worth between $7 and $8 million. People know what Thomas Vanek can do in a good situation. When he was surrounded with good players and playing, he fed off of them. I think Tavares and Oposo are feeding off of Thomas Vanek because he's been making some passes that we didn't know he was. He puts himself in a situation where it works, and you put him with the right offensive players, and you let them go and do their thing, and it's wonderful to watch. We've been watching it. Like I said, the defensive plays is one thing. When he was on that Buffalo team, which had a solid defense, and that's when he was having the 80 to 90 point seasons. To $8 million. Somebody out there is going to offer him 7.5, 7.7, $8 million right off the bat, because there are teams out there that do think he's worth this. So it's encouraging that if the Islanders are one of those teams that think he's worth it, I don't think you can put a value on a guy right now who works so well with John Tavares. I don't think you can put a value on a guy getting Kyle Oposo on value on that. That value could be $8 million. Okay, I get that. And you know what? Who cares about the next 3 years if he's going to be making more than John really an issue for people because John Tavares is going to get paid on his next contract. By the way, an opportunity to go to whoever he wants. He'll also have the opportunity to get $9 million from the Islanders. 4 years down the road from now when this team's in Brooklyn. So for me, it's a terrible contract, but I don't care about it because it's the contract that needs to happen for this team at this point in time.
And
they need to move on.
The veteran, because remember, at that point, John Tavares playing his brains out, and you keep him for the whole length of the contract, and maybe the Islanders can win a couple of Stanley Cups. You know,
when you look at him, it'll be the same thing as with the role that Marian Hossa plays in the Chicago Blackhawks. No, he's not the goal scorer that he used to be, and of course he's a little older than Vanek. But Vanek's going to produce like that in the later years of this contract. The Islanders are going to be golden. That's going to be fine for them because they're going to have two young kids that are the other guys, and Vanek won't be relied on to be the guy on the line. You know, he'll still be able to be in the right spots for these two players who seem to have better vision than they had in past years, Poso and Tavares, that is, to find him. And hey, listen, we don't want to offer you the, this money that we want to fill and this and that. If they go crying poverty to a player like that, if you're if you're a good GM, you don't let that hinder your opportunity to add in other places. You figure out how to make that work. So with a Nabokov's name never comes up in rumors. As a matter of fact, we had a rumor last week about Brodeur, that whole thing with Brodeur and Lamoriello approaching him about the no trade clause. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
But they asked him about, and he says, I wouldn't be surprised if Lou came to me and, gave me the opportunity to finish my, whatever, go out for another cup if we're not in the position. And, the two teams that were named, one of them was the Islanders. You had Minnesota was named as one. And it's funny because you look at, the Islanders and Brodeur's name seem to have come up a lot together, really, since last year, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
But, you don't hear Nabokov's name in any rumors for teams that are looking for goaltending. You don't hear his name pop up. And it's and the goaltending is a strange thing because you look at what happened with Ben Scrivens earlier this year, doing what he did with the Kings. Martin Jones coming up, and Ben Scrivens was losing starts, gets traded to the the Oilers, and he's been lights out. He had that 58 save shutout the other night, and
record breaking.
Yeah, and that cost them a third-round pick. And then you look at term solution at goal. I have a funny feeling that we've some good out of Poulin this year, some bad out of Poulin this year, and I get the funny feeling that the Islanders. The thing that scares me is the Islanders are going to blame a lot of their problems on the fact that this guy Poulin has a goals against over 3, a low 900 save percentage, and they're going to go out and get a goaltender and not address the defense. And that is going to be a crime because any other goaltender I think that you put in this situation is going to struggle.
Oh, I've seen brilliant at times. Poulin has looked awful at times, and there are times when Poulin's numbers look awful when he has played fairly well because he has nobody in front of him. Now, to get back to what I was talking about when it comes to who would I move? Would I move Vanek? I would not move him before the trade deadline, and frankly, I don't know that I would move him after the trade deadline. Players that I would move, the first one you're never going to get a trade for is Josh Bailey. Nobody's going to
take that on right now.
If you can get anything for Josh Bailey, if you can get a 7th-round pick for Josh Bailey, get rid of him.
They should have traded him last year before they signed him. They should have traded him for
the second guy I would move is Amac. Somebody will I know that our defense has struggled, but frankly, he's a part of it. They're not going to address the defense. And any defense that they address, if it's a prospect, be here this year anyway.
This defense needs a new look. This defense needs a new look. You know that, I mean, Strick's under contract. Hickey's under contract. DeHaan looks like he's developed in something. Andrew McDonald's looking for $5 million a year, and believe it or not, I think he's going to end up getting it. I think you have to move Andrew. I don't think that there's a fit for him on this team at that price. There's too many similar defensemen on this team. There were too many similar defensemen on this team, and somebody's got to go. I think you could get something decent for Andrew McDonald at the trade deadline, just because of the fact that he's a valuable shot blocker to somebody who will use him in a better situation, quite frankly, than we've been using him in. And I think that it would be wise for the Islanders to look into moving him in ultimate that situation. Absolutely agree.
And the other guy that I would move is Franz Nielsen. The reason being is because Franz Nielsen's having a great year, but frankly, I think that this is a career year for Franz Nielsen. I don't think we're going to see another season like this out of Franz Nielsen. And I think that right now, of all the guys on the team, aside from Vanek, the most you're going to get for anybody is Franz Nielsen because he is under contract. It's not going to be trading an expiring contract for an expiring contract for an expiring contract or an expiring contract for a prospect. I think right now and get a defenseman that can play top
contract for the next 3 years after this at $2.5 million cap hit a year. He's always consistently putting up 40, 45 points when you look at his history. That's very valuable. You know, at that price, it's very good. It's a very good contract and and it's a good player.
I also think that you're going to move Brock Nelson back to center.
I like the depth that they have at center right now. And I don't want to just trade Franz Nielsen just to get rid of him, but I agree with you in the sense that I think you give him up now to get what you need more for the future. You know, you can get a good defenseman. You can get that good piece by trading Franz Nielsen. He's got a lot of value. He's got a lot of value around the league, and I know that there's plenty of teams that have called the Islanders about Franz Nielsen. And when you look at the build of this roster, the makeup of this roster, you have to kind of move from a position of strength. And some people may disagree that it's a position of strength, but the Islanders do have some strength up there up front, especially when you consider Strom is coming in. Whoever they draft this year, will come in and quote unquote explosive, quote unquote better defenseman than you have on this roster currently. And it can be somebody young that you can control for years. So to me, he's definitely a guy that I would listen to offers on. Bailey, I don't think Bailey's going to be here. I don't think they're going to ever find a taker for him at this point. He'd have to get back to the level that he was in the playoffs to get anybody to even think about giving up something decent. Well, I don't think that they're just going to dump him.
If you can free up that $3 million and then go after a better defense.
That'd be tough. Nobody's going to give up, anything just to take on $3 million of. For me, that's McDonald's the first guy that I look to move. That this team's going to move a Clutterbuck. I don't think that this team's going to look to move a Matt Martin.
And I don't think that they should.
And I don't think that
why
they
would
should
you?
either.
Why would you? They're filling their roles well.
More so Clutterbuck than Martin. So for me, I don't think you can move those guys right now. I think that trying to do here. This team needs to. I don't want to say Franz Nielsen. I like the edge that he has to his game, but he's a little Eastern Conference. This team needs to adjust more to the Eastern Conference style, and I think that you need to start looking at guys that fit that play better, that have a little bit of grit to their game, a little bit more rough and tumble, that aren't as easy to knock off the puck, guys that are good, that think the game very well. Right now, Josh Bailey doesn't think the game very well, and that's been a problem actually on the power play because he's ruined a lot of power play chances. And we said last week what we've been saying over the last couple of weeks. So, there are some guys that need a new situation. He's one of them. I don't think they're going to find that new situation for him this year. But these are definitely guys that I would absolutely look to move before I move Thomas Vanek.
Right. Or Martin or Clutterbuck or anybody else, really.
The Nielsen one is interesting because I've had a lot of people say, how can you move him?
It's easy
and when
to
you
move
explain,
him.
you're going to have a lot of interest if you move him. It is tough right now because he is a very good player on this team, and he is part of the solution. But you can use him when you feel more comfortable in Strome. I think you can replace the point on average, because this is a career year for him. I don't know. We don't know if he'll ever get to this
I
level
don't think
again.
he's going to.
I know you don't. As you said, you can get a replacement guy like that, to put in and put up points, 45, 50 points a year. Those guys are a dime a dozen. But I think, Franz, he struggled on face-offs. He's got very good vision, though. He can play the point on the power play and things. I think that there's a value in that to a team that can use him in a role and know that he can put up points and know that he's solid defensively enough. And I think for the Islanders, they have to look at that and realize that they can get a good return on a guy like that. And as much as it's as tough as it is to trade a fan favorite, you kind of have to do that to get a different look. And they did that with Molson. They felt comfortable enough in that change of look to give up the draft picks.
And you know what? Up to this point, as far as player for player goes, this deal has worked out for us.
I mean, Molson's going to probably get them a decent return alone, in a different situation because they're obviously not trading for another expiring contract. They're going to be trading for a guy, a prospect, a pick, whatever. And there are teams that are looking for wingers. I mean, Los Angeles is looking for wingers. Pittsburgh's looking for wingers. Ottawa's looking for wingers. And these are guys that are going to come knocking on our door, for the Thomas Vaneks. I mean, it's going to be a lot of talk.
Right,
and then unless I'm getting, like I said, that stud D or that stud forward prospect
even the
who's really close.
Even the first round pick I don't want because great, we got the 25th overall pick for Thomas Vanek, and now we lose the next 4 months to negotiate with him.
Yep, and it'll be a pick in this year's draft, and I'm not taking a 20-something pick in this year's draft. It's a very weak draft.
No.
If you want to give me the 2015 pick, fine. I'm assuming that the Islanders are going to keep the pick this year because you're assuming that they're going to be top 5.
No more picks. Stop with the stupid draft picks. We've had too many draft picks. It's time to make it happen now.
This team may be
enough. And let me tell you something. You did this to yourselves when you made the playoffs last year, and you said the rebuild is over. So stop with the draft picks.
This team may be bad enough to draft Aaron Ekblad this year, and if that's the case, then they should keep this pick this year. If they're falling out of honestly, if they're picking like 9th or 10th, it's almost not worth it because of how much of a weak draft year it is. But
let it go, and you know what? You probably do better with a 15 pick next year than you would at 9 this year.
The way that things project out right now, you definitely would. But if this team's top 5, which certainly looks like the path that they're headed down, they got to keep this year's pick. And then your hope is that next year that they dress what they're supposed to, which they've been talking about trying to do. I mean, Snow's been looking for a top 4 defenseman. That's great. So is everybody else in the world. But if you use a piece now this year and what looks like it's going to be a lost year to get that top 4, to get that other guy that you can bring in so you don't have to rely on 20, 22 minutes a night from Griffin Reinhart, then you're going to be then you should be fine. In theory, you should be much better. You shouldn't have to worry about a draft pick next year because you'll be picking, like you said, maybe around 15th or whatever, borderline playoffs, whatever it is. But my fear is like you said, you're going to lose Andrew McDonald. You're not going to do anything to address the defense. My fear is that they're going to blame all the problems on Kevin Poulin, which to me is technically a little unfair, although I'm not thrilled with him. I think there's been more than enough nights where he's played well enough to win and the team loses because of the defense in front of him. He gives up, like I said, he gave up a bad goal against Boston, but a lot of those, Thomas Hickey falls over the blue line, Karkner, sleeping, and we've seen too much of that this year. And they got to start weeding out some of those guys, and getting different looks back there. It's too small. There's not enough hockey sense back there. And they need to do that. And if that means you have to give up a guy like a Nielsen to get it, that's fine. I'd love to see them get, these defensive prospects. If Jake Gardner is on the block and this and that, he's not the greatest, but I think he can fit in this system. They need different looks. They need some guys with size, some guys that play with an edge, some guys that can move the puck. They need some jack of all trades type of guys that can really help that blue line because there's a lot of elements that are missing. There's a lot of one-dimensional players that are back there.
Yeah. The best news out of this week, and it's not even really a thing to talk about. We're not going to have a discussion on it, really. Maybe a quick 1 or 2 sentence opinion of it, because we got to go to break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to do the sin bin. And while we're on break, if you guys in the chat room would like to take a stab at how many goals this team has let up in the last the last 3 and the first 3 minutes of a period, why don't you go ahead and guess? I got the number here, Chris, and I'll ask you after we get back from the break. I'm sorry, but the best news of the week is that those hideous black jerseys are gone.
Yeah. We didn't get to talk about that last week, but when we wore them against the Blues, I think it was Howie basically said at the beginning of the game those were going to the trash bin. My dad, watching the game with him the other night, and he said, they look cool, but I don't like the fact that there's no Long Island there. But I thought that they did a nice job with those jerseys, and I like those much better than those black monstrosities. I like those as a third. We'll wear them a couple of times this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing some more from them and seeing what opinions people formulate over time.
Agreed. All right, we're going to take a break. When we get back at Sin Bin time, you're listening to NYIFYI live on NYIFYI.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Just find NYIFYI in the iTunes store and hit subscribe.
Hey guys, it's Sean, and you've been listening to me talk about Cardboard Memories in Comac for years. A lot of you have checked it out, and that's awesome. But for those of you who haven't, what are you waiting for? Cardboard Memories has everything you want. Sports memorabilia, movie memorabilia. He's got old press passes, old pins if you're into collecting that kind of thing. If you need something authenticated, Scott is the guy to go to. I guarantee it. Look, I've added a ton of stuff to my collection, and there's nowhere else I'd rather shop than Cardboard Memories in Comac in the Pepper Tree Commons. They got all the info right now at cardboardmemories.com. You've got to check them out.
Have a question? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Have a comment? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Have a concern? The forum at NYIFYI.com. Need a date for the night? You might want to look somewhere else. But when it comes to hockey, let your voice be heard. Check out the forum at NYIFYI.com. Chat with hockey fans from all over the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Membership is free, so log on and be heard. The forum at NYIFYI.com.
Jack of All Trades Productions, Long Island's premier full-service post-production company, specializing in wedding videos, corporate videos, music videos, and film. Jack of All Trades Productions is there for all your post-production needs. Jack of All Trades Productions uses Avid Media Composer to bring finesse and style to your project, with experience in color correction, as well as sound editing and design. For more information, log on to JackieZo.com. That's JackieZo.com. Again, that's JackieZo.com. Jack of All Trades Productions.
The NYIFYI Sin Bin, presented by Cardboard Memories in Comac. Cardboard Memories is located in the Pepper Tree Commons on the corner of Jericho Turnpike and Comac Road. More info at cardboardmemories.com. Here's Sean and Chris.
All right, Sin Bin this week for me, it's got to be the power play.
Yeah,
I mean, it sucks.
And it was everybody on the power
sucks.
play. It was everybody on the power play, from Tavares to Vanek to Oposo to Nielsen to Bailey to whomever else. Clutterbuck. Clutterbuck is great when they're down a man, but when they put him on the power play, it seems to be a little bit of a deer in headlights when he has the puck on the power play.
Yeah, what happened there?
I don't know. I think it was agreeing with us.
Yeah. All right, so you want to take a stab at how many goals the Islanders have let up in the first 3 and last 3 minutes of a period?
I'm going to say 48.
You're kind of close, actually.
Am I really?
That's not a bad 59.
Oh, my gosh.
This team, let's go to TSN. What is our goals against for the year? I'm going to check this out right now.
Our differential is terrible. I know that much.
I want to see what our goals against is. 59 goals. This team has let up 59 goals 3 minutes of a period and the first 3 minutes of a period, and I was nice because there were a lot of games where 3:02, 3:06, or the 16:57 mark, I didn't count those because I said I'm going to stay within my timeline of 3 minutes. But you know what? I probably could have added 7 or 8 more goals onto this if I would have said, you know what, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, throw it on and count it.
Yeah.
59. This team has allowed 191 goals this season. A quarter of the goals, more than a quarter, more than 25% of the goals scored against the Islanders this season comes within the first 3 or last 3 minutes of a period.
And I bet you most of those happen in these big divisional games.
Yeah, that I didn't break down.
I don't need you to break that down. They're playing their division more than they're playing other teams, obviously. So that's kind of an obvious thing. But this is the problem. It's a big part of the problem. The goal differential is a problem, and your record against your division reflects that. You know, when you have the inability to play your own division, to win these big games, it's a bad situation, and that's why we're here. We're here again, another year, in February, talking about draft and trades and deadlines, and it's not fun. It's not fun.
No, it's terrible. 59 out of 191. Momentum killers. All right, that's awesome. We're going to be off next week, so we'll return on what would that be? February 16th. We'll be on break next week. Enjoy the Olympics, and we will be back on the 16th. For Chris Hessel, I'm Sean Croft. I don't always know why. And we'll see you guys after the break.